Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fit Health Well. I am your host, Jay Denson, and I have a very special guest that I'm excited to have on my show today. As you guys know, in addition to having professionals on my show, I love having people who has amazing stories. And this young lady, she did something in terms of her community where, she saw something that was lacking, and she did something about it. And she has her way of defining what that is. But I always think it's something special because, we have these resources that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago. If you want to see your representation on television, you can have a YouTube channel. If you see that there's a lack of audience and your needs aren't being addressed, you can have a digital magazine or write a book. And, this was something that she did. My guest today is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She originally from Chicago. She is an HBCU graduate at Tuskegee University. Over the years, she has organized and coordinated cycling, running meetups with local groups like Black Girls Run, Black Girls Do Bike. And she's also been encouraging ladies to increase their fitness by participating in marathons, dualathons, and triathlons. What's also important, in 2013, she completed her first triathlon, which inspired her to encourage others to try the sport. Swimming, biking, and running has proven to be both challenging and rewarding. Now, she looks to inspire a younger generation and to continue encouraging those new triathlons to make it to the finish line. She published her first children's book, which will be released in October, titled I Am A Triathlete. She is a triathlete, a marathon author, and an inspiration to many. My guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Nia Obotette. How are you today?
Great job.
Hey, I was going to ask you, how was the intro? I take a lot of pride in introducing my guests properly. So I know it was a mouthful, but did I catch everything? Awesome. So we're going to get right into it. Before, we get into the book and just the fantastic work and what I like to call it, just a passion project. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
No problem. That's the easier part.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am Nia Obotette, and I am in Wisconsin. And I wouldn't call myself, a professional athlete. I'm your weekend girl trying to get out on the bike, trying to get some swimming, just trying to stay healthy. And probably a couple years ago, I felt like, I wanted to do more to stay fit. And I started, running, and I found a group like Black Girls Run here in Milwaukee, and started running with that group. And then, started cycling and got introduced to Black Girls Do Bike in Milwaukee. And then it was helping to grow those groups, right? And how can you do that? So then organizing ladies to, run and bike and, just getting out and having fun. And so that led me into, challenging myself to do something else. And, once I did my marathon, I was like, what else can I challenge myself to do? And so I'd signed up for a sprint triathlon. You definitely have different ranges, just like you have different ranges in running, you have different ranges in triathlons as well. So the sprint is the most common for, everyday people, and it's one that it allows people to entry level, someone who's just kind of a weekend person like myself that, stays fit and stays active to, do this. And so, yep, I signed up for my first one and got hooked, and then, just went back for more.
Absolutely.
So that's me.
And I just want to add to what you said earlier as well too. I know when we say athletes in traditional terms, we look at the professional athletes, right? And some people almost look to them as gods, but they're really not. They're just really good at their craft. I like to personally think, and congratulations on it, because I've done that myself. Even whether you do a half marathon, a 5K, 10K, or full marathon, that is something amazing. You are an athlete in your own regard. Be very proud of that. Because I tell people all the time, even these professional athletes, tell LeBron James to get up and run 26 miles that he didn't train for. And find out what happens, right? Like that's the only time that's the only time someone regular probably can, again, best someone that's professional. So that in itself is amazing. And speaking to your, before we get into how many people you inspired in the groups and things like that, I want to have this question is more catered towards the everyday person, right? The person that's like, well, how can I get up and go exercise? And I guess my first question will be is, from the couch to the pavement, right? What would be your advice to anyone from that starting foundation that wants to be healthy, especially for us, right, as African Americans and as Black people, where we historically had poorer health? And what I'm glad to see is there's been an uptick in terms of, I want to say, and I don't have the statistics with me on hand, but certainly within the past 5 years, we have been taking care of ourselves. So what can someone do that's interested in just, taking care of themselves and going from the couch to the pavement? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think sometimes it's challenging, right? So, you're on the couch and you're kind of a little isolated, and that isolation makes you, it gets you in that same cycle. So to break that cycle, joining groups, and I wasn't a big Facebook person before I joined these groups, but it was my way to get on there and I could see people, that looked like me, my size, my color, that had some interest in doing these activities, and it made it seem as if it was something that I can do. So I think the first step for someone who's sitting on the couch is to just get out, and you don't have to do a lot, but just commit to doing something. So even if it's walking around your block every day, even if it's safer to drive someplace and walk there, it's free to walk. If you have a bike, it's free to ride your bike. You don't have to pay anybody to do that. And, oftentimes we feel like we need all this equipment and stuff. You don't, get your tennis shoes on and just get moving. And you don't have to run a 5K or start running immediately. It's just, a lot of the ladies start very slow and just walking. Like at one point, I didn't like to walk on busy streets. I'm like, people looking at my behind. And so I had this nervousness about different things, and you go out there with a group, you go out there on a trail with a group, you see them and blah, blah, blah. And it, a lot of that self-consciousness melts away, and you become more confident in your surroundings and getting out. And it's really about you making that first step and keeping moving with your plan to stay fit. So that's what my suggestion would be. One, just try a small plan of getting outside, getting around your house, just making it from one. I'm just gonna make one block today. I'm just gonna make 2 blocks today. I'm just gonna make 3, and you will be amazed at what your body can do if you make the mental note to get out there and get moving.
Absolutely. That's actually a really great response. Thank you so much for that, Nia. And as you'll learn in our interview, and my viewers and listeners already know, I love to do recaps, and just recapping that session. Like she said, I think the most simplest advice, and we don't tend to think about this, is just get up and walk, right? Like, when I lived in New York City, I lived in a 2-fare zone. Those who are unfamiliar with a 2-fare zone is typically you have to take the bus to the train in order to get to work, right? So what I would do is, I would take the train all the way from downtown, and then instead of taking the bus, those extra couple of miles, I just walked it, right? And so that's very important. Another thing that I honed in on what she said is that a lot of these activities that you're doing, running including, or walking, is free, right? You don't need a gym membership for that, right? Just get up and go out there and get moving. And I think the third portion of what you said in your response to that is important as well, is if you're that type of person, and I know everyone's not outgoing like that, but if you can find groups of people, whether it's you relate to them physically, or if they have any goals, anything that relates to you, find groups like that. Because I can tell you, during the time when I was living in New York City, I did not see a lot of black runners when I was running. I'm gonna be honest with you. And at the time, there was not a lot of black running clubs. Like, there was no Black Girls Run, there was no Black Men's Run, there was no Black Runners Connection. All of these in New York City and throughout the country that exists. So it's empowering,
It is very empowering.
right, to see these groups, and you do have help and resources. And to my listeners, is if there's anyone out there that's a beginner, when it comes to this, what I've learned myself is people are more than willing to help you along the steps. They will help you, they will answer questions. So you have a support system, and you have a community that is ready to support you. So Nia, thank you for so much for that. With you being a triathlete now, and this is something too, we're going to get into the latter part, because is I hate to admit this, man, but I can't swim. I want to learn to swim, right? I know. So my first question being, is how did you make the transition? I know you were already running. Were you doing the biking and the swimming at the same time, or
Um,
did you make a transition? Walk me through those steps.
Not a problem. So running came first. There was a coworker that passed away, and in some of when they did this reflection of his pictures and stuff, he had a Chicago Marathon medal. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Look at that. He's a runner. Oh, that's amazing. And so I looked at him and I was like, oh, I want to try that. I want to try, getting fitting and start running. So running was the first aspect. And then I found a $40 bike at the Goodwill. It was, it cost me more to get it tuned up than it
Yeah.
did to buy the bike. And then that's what I used. That's what I started biking with. I didn't have a fancy bike. I had this $40 bike from Goodwill that cost me $60, $100 of investment to get me up and running. And that's what I was biking with. And through one of the groups, one of the ladies mentioned that she had done a triathlon, and this particular one is called Iron Girl, and it's a sprint triathlon. So that means that it's a half a mile swim, 12-mile bike, and a 5K, which is like 3 miles, a little bit over 3 miles. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do 3 miles. I could do 12 miles on a bike. That swim part. What even is a half a mile swim if I'm in the pool? And so I knew I could float. I did not know how to swim. My face, I would do the doggy paddle with my chin up. That's about it. And then I knew I was a strong back floater. And when I say back float, I mean, I'm not a backstroke. This is backstroke. You stroke. Back float mean your arms are to the side. Just move in the water. And so I practiced in a pool. I found out what the distance, how many laps that was for a half a mile. And I practiced that in a pool. And then when I found out, targeted a race to go to, they had some practice swims in the lake. And I went down there, and there wasn't anyone that looked like me. And there was a lake that I didn't know how deep the water was. I could not see the bottom of it. It had turtles and fish and slime and seaweeds. And I spent the larger portion of that time, that first time I went down on the shore in tears of fear, because what I practiced in the pool was not the reality that I saw when I got to the lake. And so that was something I had to overcome, right? And so I just went back again for the next, they had a series of open swims. And so I basically went back again, each time just getting a little bit more familiar with the water, not going out as far, not having one of the lifeguards maybe not swim next to me, but they would be in kayaks maybe, and just tell them, hey, I'm not that strong of a swimmer. Do you mind just, keeping an eye out on the sister? And they did do that. And so going down and just getting familiar with the lake and getting familiar with the water just helped me to know that I had the tools that I needed and the confidence to get across the lake. So that particular triathlon, you swim across the lake, which is really nice. some of them you got to swim out and back and, do all these curves. So it's just about, they would set up these kind of runways, and race day, you just keep moving forward. And that's what I did. And I can remember being, kind of 10 minutes into it and struggling because when you're on your back, you can see everyone swimming towards you, and people are swimming fast, and they're not paying attention to you. Their faces in the water. And so I kept struggling that someone was going to swim over me. And because that race has swim angels, because it's made for beginners, one of the ladies swam over to me and, said, "Do you want this noodle to hold on to?" And I said, "Nope, I just need somebody to swim in front of me while I'm on my back going to the other end, so I don't feel like someone's going to swim over me." And they did that. And then I was just like, okay, I made it I made it across. Hey, I can do this. I can improve my time. Let's get some lessons. Let's get, perfect this technique. And so every year I try to do something that could lessen the fear and to help me improve swimming, because it definitely was a challenge. I was not a strong swimmer when I started. So
I love hearing your breakdown. I was so eloquent because let me tell you something. Everything that you said, I've probably experienced it with failure. The fear, the not being able to float. I'm a rock, and like I am determined. I know COVID right now is like everything's a bit restricted, right? So, but one of my 2021 missions and beyond, because I feel, not that I feel, I know that swimming is an asset, and again, like I've been on vacations, like even when I've gone to the to the West Indies and to St. Kitts and Barbados, and like I'm like, okay, well, I got a life jacket going on my noodles, and I'm just comfortable with that, and I shouldn't be, right? And I think a bigger issue that we that's being addressed, but I feel like it's not addressed enough, and it'll most likely be a mission of mine via a podcast or gathering resources, is getting young Black people involved with swimming at an early age, because it was something that I wasn't exposed to. I'm just going to be honest, and I'm not blaming that. I take accountability as an adult for taking lessons and learning, but I feel that the sooner that we get our young ones more comfortable, because like you said, you knew how to swim, you knew when you were a strong swimmer, and you had that fear. So imagine how I feel. I'm like, nope, I don't want to deal with the water. And I think we should again, as African Americans and as Black people, we have to get away from that stigma of not wanting to go in the water, right? Not wanting to swim.
And the fear is real. But Jay, one of the things that I noticed is that fear shows up a lot of places. It doesn't just show up in the water, right? Mm-hmm. It shows up in other places of your life, and, things that you fear that you can't do. And what I've found is most times that we do ourselves an injustice because our mind is giving us so much more than what reality is. And so that is definitely a challenge. It's a challenge when you show up for a marathon. I literally was like physically in fear of doing my first marathon. I don't know why, but I just was. Like when I showed up, it was really scary to me. And when you do it, you're just like, what was that all about? But it's easier said than done. I do have advice for you though. How about this?
Yeah.
So, even though I did that, I still had a fear of water. And what helped me was I went to a deep end of a pool, and I let go of the deep end and just saw, am I going to float to the bottom? What's really going to happen? And I did. I didn't float to the bottom. Like it took some effort for my body to float to the bottom. As long as, like, if I was still I just let it go and just got really still and to see what would happen. And basically there was some buoyancy in my body that I noticed. So try that, because what happens is we think that, oh my goodness, we're going to just fall to the bottom. There's some effort. If there's not a lot of, waves and stuff going on, you're in that pool, try that on the deep end, just kind of let it go and see, float a little bit, kind of let, not float and see what'll happen. Like you kind of control that. And that helped me because I'm like, even if I was still in the water and didn't do anything at all, this is the minimum that I would need to float. And that gave me the tool to say, all right, if I'm out in this lake or whatever and I get scared or nervous, here's the plan.
I love that. I'm
Here's the
definitely taking,
plan.
yep, that's it. I'm going to take that, take your advice into consideration, and I'm going to adopt that. And in addition to that, I'm going to make sure I have 3 lifeguards. I have 2 paramedics just in case. But yeah, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And anyone listening too, again, apply that if, you're learning to swim, you want to be a stronger swimmer. It is the biggest part of that. And it's crazy. It's just that one aspect of my life I haven't nailed down. Like anything else, I'm like, oh man, I'll get over it. But I don't know, big bodies of water. And I'm just like, oh! That and freaking flying in planes. That's another one too. Because I don't know. I guess I have a concept of I don't got control of my life or my situation. I think that's what really scares me, right? All right. So we talked about the younger people. Now this is what I really wanted to get into is the book, right? So you had this, I'm so happy about to talk about this and excited. So guys, I briefly touched on it in the beginning of our interview here. But what Nia noticed, and I would assume not only in your community, but just in general, there's not enough, in my opinion, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that now with Pixar shorts and things like that. But representation matters, and I think when it comes to young African American, whether you're African American or you're Black and you're a young person, we need more books that reflect us and reflect our interest in learning tools for us. So Nia saw something that didn't exist, and she did something about it, and I think that's great. And she wrote a book. So we're going to start talking about that. And my first question to you, Nia, is, tell us about that experience, right? Like how did the idea come up? What sparked that, and what tools did you implement to see this through?
Yeah, so I have a niece. Her name is Nia, and she's athletic. And I thought that if I could convince her to be a part of the triathlons, that she would make the podium, that she would win. And I was looking for avenues that I could influence her. And I often give her books, to do that. She's a reader. And so when I went to look, I noticed that there wasn't any children's books. And she's, I thought that was strange. And when I was looking for that and doing, just doing some research of like, all right, wait, okay, there's not a book out here. Now, understand, they are children's triathlon books, but of African Americans, I'm like, where are the books that look like her, like me? And then I came across this informatic, and I'll share it with you, Jay, later. It had the statistics of children's books, and it was dismal. It really showed that minorities, including African Americans and all the other minorities, if you add them all together, the books for other meaning unicorns, bears, donkeys, all of that, those type of books, you would have more of those books than you would have of all the minority groups together, meaning African Americans, Hispanic, all of those. You added all of those children's books together, still the other group. And then you would have, obviously, whites and so forth. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, what are our children reading? And like, why can't they see books that look like them, that it's important that they do? And so that in itself, was the underlining inspiration that, hey, I want to create this I Am a Triathlete book to inspire my niece and to inspire others not just my niece. The book is for all ages to inspire and encourage them to swim, bike, and run. And so, I wrote a book that the younger me would appreciate, and that I wanted those in my community or outside of my community as well to see, like, this is what it looks like to see us to get a different feel, like. And I had these illustrations. Adriel Mecca was my illustrator, and I was clear here, this is what I want, this is what I want to see in the book. And those images, and when he did them, I was like, that's it, that's what's been in my head about what I wanted to create, for people to see, to realize that, hey, we are out here swimming, bike, and running, believe it or not. And here's what it looks like, for example. Encourage more. Let me reach back and encourage, some of our younger, our youth in our community to find an interest in it,
Absolutely. And like, when this comes out, and this will be out in October once the book is released, as you guys are listening to it, the illustrations are beautiful. My question to you, because it does seem like a very hefty book, is it split up, and we're not giving away anything here, but this speaks to the format. Is it split up in sections like I am a triathlete, I am a biker, I am a swimmer, or is it just everything put into one together?
It's everything. Yep. It's really a picture book. Probably more words than it is pictures, but it is my first book. But I would consider it a picture book. And it doesn't have chapters to it. It is an easy reader. So it's really targeted for those who are like maybe 7 to 12, maybe, or it could be a little bit younger as well, some of the words. But I call it a book for all ages. It's, you can read it to the younger youth, and you can give it to someone who's a triathlete now, or swimmer, biker, or runner, just to encourage them. It's a way of motivating people of color and people who are interested in the sport to be encouraged.
Absolutely.
Out of their comfort zones.
Yeah, right. What was, so you got the I would assume most of break down the funding. The funding, to me, I saw the Kickstarter. Like, was it, if you don't mind me asking this, well, how was it a percentage of how much you put in, or was it 100% Kickstarter, or what was the support in terms of just getting this thing off the ground?
So I wasn't necessarily going to do a Kickstarter. I wasn't going to go that route. I originally wrote the book in thoughts that I'm just going to create some website and just, casually promote it through Amazon. And it would not be something that I would be doing interviews for, or like, I have a full-time job. It wasn't something that I was like, all right, I'm for my niece's party, I might, do some shirts or something like that. That was really my intention. And in the course of trying to get it ready, I realized how expensive it can be with what I wanted to do. And so the thought of the Kickstarter was twofold. One, to see if I can pay for both the illustration and the publishing of the book, because I didn't really want 100 books sitting here and trying to like send them out to people, for a lifetime. Are people even interested in this topic? And so the Kickstarter allowed me to kind of see who has an interest in it, right? Originally, I was going to make the Kickstarter goal at like $2,500, and I made it for $5, and we did 16. And that is just insane. It really is really insane. But that just told me there is an interest out here for illustrations and pictures and stories that we haven't told, and we have the ability to change the narrative of what we see in our society today. And the only way we do that is to produce work that looks like us, and the avenue to do that is so open these days. I would want to say that with all the marching and stuff, we can do a new renaissance, bring in a new renaissance of just, because that avenue is open to self-publish. Like, you don't have to wait on anybody anymore. You put that book together in a PDF, and
That's right.
you get it self-funded, and off to the printers. You don't have to wait for anybody to put the rubber stamp for you to put it out on Amazon. So the avenues now for us to continue to make history and continue to be the first, are still out there. It definitely is. And it's really amazing, because here we are in 2020, here we are. And I'm like, I'm the first one writing the book. African-American children's triathlete book. Really? Like,
right. And I mean, it's like, I'm trying to figure out a way to word this. It's a gift and it's a curse, I guess the best way to say it. The gift being like, wow, you introduced something that's amazing. But the curse is like, okay, it's 2020. This should have been happened, right? Like, how many creative minds? But this is what I love about it. This is what's great. Like, what you said is crucial, which is, we live in a world now where we have our own resources. More importantly, and this is what I've been developing, and this is what I've been doing myself, is speaking to minorities and Black people in general, is we create our own network, right? You have someone like yourself, that's an author, and you're putting out meaningful work. There's Black content creators, right, that have podcasts, and then also that has YouTube channels that are doing well. And as we do well, we continue to help each other out, because guess what? You don't need NBC at the end of the day, or ABC, if you have a Black content producer or promoter that has 5 million followers, and it doesn't take much for them to say, hey, this woman created a children's book. Check this out, right? So we definitely have the tools, and I definitely feel you on that. And one thing that I took to that you said was, you said, hey, look, I put out a Kickstarter just to kind of like pretty much test the water to see if this was something that people would be interested in. And you had a goal initially of 2,500 and you got 16,000. So what does that tell you? That tells you that we lack, right, a lane, a narrative.
And believe it or not, I'm not the only one. So and what's interesting is, for Kickstarter, it can sometimes be challenging with these, group funded projects and whatever, especially for people of color. Like, historically, you wouldn't have people backing us. And there is this, I keep wanting to say renaissance, because my book was about I Am A Triathlete, but there is another Milwaukee woman who was kicking butt, and I think she did $60,000 for a comic book on Kickstarter. And she was doing that right before I started mine. And I was like, wow.
Exactly. And if you guys are listening to this, like, honestly, like, this, like, we have something here, especially, again, if you're a Black creator of anything, whether it's, you're being an author, or you creating digital content, right? Or you're just you're inspiring and influencing many. And on this program, I'm not sure if you're aware, Nia, but like, Willie Mae's Farm, they're Black farmers. I thought it was important that agriculture was something that was not taught to Black people, right? Yeah. And I had Black farmers on here, and like, again, it is prom. You're right. You don't have to be cautious when you say this. I think we're just not conscious of it, but we are in a renaissance right now. We are, because we have, even with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and when it affects the point where athletes are refusing to play the game, we on to something.
That's in my hometown, man.
That's right. Right? Like, they like, listen.
That's in my hometown. Marching right now. I think Trump is here, and we heard the helicopters. So they're out here marching, and all I can say, I'm doing my own march.
Exactly. We have our ways.
Yes, like, everybody has a way to.
Yeah, we have a way to express ourselves, and don't feel, there's many ways, right, that you can protest. It's not only just going out, which we appreciate, but it's not only going out, put a foot on the ground and things like that, but it's through your art, right, or it's through information,
Yeah.
and accurate information. And I'm a huge advocate of that, with me having a master's in digital media from Columbia, which I'm very proud of. I don't want to put out misinformation. Thank you. I don't want to put out misinformation, and I want to, I didn't care to have a podcast, to be honest with you. But when I decided to do one, I wanted to introduce information that was meaningful and it would serve a purpose to society, right? And as people listen to this, someone could listen to this podcast and be inspired. And I want to tell you, keep up the good work, because you know what? You probably coming up with a concept for another book, and you're
Am
gonna
I
get that
actually?
support, right? Like we wait, we listen, we waiting
Yes,
on it,
I'm already working on
and
it.
we're gonna be here to support you. Fit Health Well as a media outlet is gonna be here to support you. So keep that up. The last question I have with you regarding the books, and I feel like this is a very important question, is I know the book is coming out this month. What was the feedback, right, been from whether social media or in your community? Because this is I want to acknowledge that this is a huge accomplishment, and I commend you for that. So what's the feedback been like?
It has been humbling. It really has. And I am, sometimes I cry because it is really humbling, because you have this idea and you birth it and you're not sure how people are going to accept it or take it or whatever, but you're just creating it. And to see see people come and reach out. And even today, my inbox is filled with, I wouldn't say feel, that's a little exaggeration, but I am continuing to get people reaching out to me. I had a lady reach out to me today, was like, I don't swim, my son doesn't swim, I'm fear of swimming, and then the other day I had someone reach out to me from Colorado, Arizona, like, so it's been this overwhelming thing of like seeing people get touched, like seeing the image, she was like, oh, they ran this positive image of you on, and I saw it, and I was just, I was really encouraged by it. I was encouraged to kind of write my own book. I think she was a roller skater or something, and she did derby, and I was like, oh, that's an exciting book. You and your daughter doing a derby, you should write a book, like, hey. So I think, the response had been really overwhelming. It really has. And when I originally did it, I had reached out to Tony, who runs the Black Triathlete on Facebook, and I'd reached out to the owner of Black Girls Do Bike, and Jay over at Black Girls Do Run, because a lot of them, I've been in these groups for a long time, and they are reachable. They are reachable and real people. And I said, hey, I'm doing this book. Will you support me? And to see them support, it's just been incredible. Because they have created these safe platforms for people like me and others to go and feel safe along their run or cycling or triathlete journey that wasn't out there before, and these are safe environments that people are using to better their skills, and then going out to marathons where you don't see anyone that looks like you, and you feel confident that you have, because you've been riding with these groups in your own local community, or you've been seeing them on Facebook, and that they're going to be at this event, and you go there just so y'all can hey and give each other the nod, like, hey. So I think that part of it has been really humbling. Just seeing that interest, so after the campaign, I had an order of over 200 and something books, and it's my first book.
Congratulations.
I wasn't even gonna market.
No, congratulations on that. And I'm so glad you said that on my program, just because it's a humble brag, but it's a necessary brag, because you have to sometimes sit back and say, man, like, this was just something that I thought up, and I brought it into fruition. Mm-hmm. You spoke on something too that I thought was funny, because you acknowledged that it exists, and it's the the Black person nod. Because ever since I moved to Canada, I don't see too many people in my area that look like me from coming from New York. So even when I go out for a jog and I see a brother or sister and they out there running on the trail and I give them the nod, and we do that to each other. So that's, that's respect. So again, thank you so much for coming onto the program. And guys, what she's doing here is amazing. So whether you a minority or you're not even a minority, and you just feel what she's doing is great work, please support her this month as her book debuts. And we're going to get into the fun part, Nia, because now my listeners want to know, after hearing this great story, they want to know, where can they get the book? And then also, once you tell everyone where they can get the book, I want you to follow up. If you do have any new projects coming for 2021, this is the opportunity to discuss that. And then we can close it out with how they can follow you on social media.
Gotcha, no problem. Jay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I know you had reached out, and so I'm just glad to be on your program, and I really appreciate that. And thank you to your listeners. I want to encourage all of your listeners to change the narrative. You see something, change it. You have the power to do it. And so whether it's writing, whether it's, illustrating, whatever it is, you have the power your destiny is yours. And so I would say, if you're interested in my book, I Am A Triathlete, you can go to my webpage, Nia the Author, and you can find my book there. And you can also find me on all the social medias platforms, most of them, Jay, which is amazing for me. Someone who didn't even like to be on Facebook. I now have a Instagram account, Nia the Author, Facebook account, Nia the Author, and then I also have a Twitter account, which is Nia _ I think, the author. So you can find me at any of those locations and connect with me there. I, really appreciate it. I'm always interested in people's stories and journeys. And my hope is I've already written, I actually have 3 books that I've already written. I'm hopeful that I can find an illustrator to, because mine has been super busy. So we're crossing our fingers that he can do the second one. But I'm working on my second book already, and hopefully the third, and with avenues that I don't see that are out there, and just giving some exposure to our children, to our youth, and to adults, because honestly, I didn't know that adults read picture books too, and apparently they do. So, this book is for everyone of all ages. So, yes.
I love it. And again, we'll just recap that if you guys didn't listen, and you can also check out the YouTube channel. I'll have her information up there as well. But she made it really simple, and it is a social media rule that I learned in school. Social handles should be the same. So it is Nia the Author, NiaTheAuthor.com, and then also on Instagram, Nia the Author, and then also on Facebook, Nia the Author. You can Google it and you can find her as well. And again, I'll have that information up here on the website at fithealthwell.com. Again, for people who are listening to the show and they would like to be a guest, or you have any questions, you can send us an email at fithealthwell@gmail.com. In addition to that, we are desperately trying to grow our followers. So please be making sure you follow us on Instagram at Fit Health Well. Same thing for our YouTube channel, Fit Health Well. And Twitter is Fit Health Well CA. Again, I want to thank Nia for being a guest on our show. I'm so glad to have you. You're doing amazing work. Keep it up. You are a friend of the show. So anytime you have a new project or book coming out, we will have you back on to discuss that. And then in addition to that, definitely we'll keep in contact, and definitely just moving forward. Just want to make sure that I'm supporting you 100%. So again, thank you so much for being on. And as I always tell you guys, my listeners, I'm grateful for you guys for downloading these episodes and listening to them. I know we're coming into towards the end of the year, and when you guys listen, whether you're working out or you're doing whatever you're doing, I'm grateful for it all. So thank you so much. Please continue to follow us. And until the next episode, I'll talk to you guys later. Love you all.